The most dangerous moment in war is not the charge, not the clash of steel, not even the fear of dying. It is what comes after, when the noise disappears, and the mind is left alone with what it has just done. Because for the Roman legionnaire, victory was not the end of violence. It was the beginning of something colder, more controlled, more deliberate, and in many ways, more disturbing. The moment the last enemy line broke, the battlefield did not become peaceful. It became silent, and that silence was not relief. It was shock. A soldier's body, moments ago driven by instinct and adrenaline, suddenly had nothing to react to. No commands, no threats, no direction. Just stillness. And in that stillness, the nervous system faltered, breathing turned heavy, hands trembled, thoughts fragmented. This was not weakness. It was a psychological collapse waiting to happen. And the Romans knew it. That's why the first command after battle was not celebration. It was control. Centurions began immediate roll call. Names echoed across the field. Not for record, but for grounding. To pull men back from that dangerous edge between survival and emptiness. Because a soldier left alone in that moment was not stable. He was vulnerable. There was no wandering. No individual reflection. No space to process what had just happened. The Roman system did not allow it, because the greatest threat after battle was not the enemy returning. It was the soldier's own mind turning against him. So discipline replaced emotion. Formation replaced chaos. Routine replaced thought. Then came the body's rebellion. The armor, once invisible in the heat of combat, suddenly felt unbearable. Limbs grew heavy, muscles locked. Pain surfaced all at once. Adrenaline had masked everything. Now it was gone. And what remained was exhaustion so deep it could paralyze a man where he stood. But even then, they were not allowed to rest freely. Not yet, because rest without structure leads to reflection. And reflection, in that moment, could break a soldier completely. So the Romans did something subtle and incredibly effective. They gave them work. Simple tasks. Clean your weapon. Repair your gear. Stand your position. Not because it was urgent, but because it was necessary. Manual action became psychological medicine. Movement kept the mind occupied. Focus replaced intrusive thought. Inaction was considered dangerous. And then something even more human returned. Thirst. Not glory. Not pride. Just the need for water. Water carriers moved through the ranks. Each sip was more than relief. It was a signal. You survived. You are still here. That moment, small as it seems, was the first step back to being human again. But while the soldiers were stabilizing, something else was already moving, quietly, efficiently, without emotion. A second army. Not of fighters, but of opportunists. Behind every Roman victory, there was a marketplace waiting to open. Merchants, traders, buyers, men who had not fought, but had been watching. Waiting. Calculating. For them, the battlefield was not tragedy. It was inventory. And the moment the signal was given, they moved in. Not chaotically, but with permission, with structure, with authority. Because even profit in Rome was regulated. Weapons were no longer weapons. They were raw material, broken swords, bent shields, armor fragments. All collected, sorted, reassigned. War fed industry. Death fed production. Nothing was wasted. Jewelry was inspected on the spot. Gold weighed by eye. Craftsmanship judged instantly. What had once been symbols of identity became assets. Objects disconnected from the people who carried them. Because in Rome, value was not emotional. It was calculated. And then came the transactions. Fast, unsentimental. A Soldier might trade a captured gold item for something simple. Food, wine, boots. Because after survival, comfort mattered more than wealth. And merchants knew that prices rose. Deals favored the buyer. And still, the soldiers accepted because exhaustion reduces resistance, and relief becomes more important than fairness. Within hours, an entire economy existed on ground that had just witnessed destruction. Coins exchanged hands, resources circulated. Systems operated as if the violence before it had simply been a step in a larger process. And in truth, it was. But this wasn't the most controlled part. Not yet. Because when everything was collected, nothing belonged to the individual. Everything went to one place. One center. One system. One authority. The state. Loot was not taken. It was surrendered. Every coin. Every weapon. Every object placed into a collective pool. Because Rome understood something most armies did not. Individual reward creates conflict. Shared control creates order. Distribution came later. Carefully. Mathematically. Rank. Determined. Share. Not. Luck. Not chance. Not who found what. But where you stood in the hierarchy. This wasn't just fairness. It was psychological engineering. Because when reward is predictable, discipline strengthens. When reward is controlled, loyalty stabilizes. And any attempt to break that system was not treated as theft. It was treated as betrayal, not just of command, but of the entire structure that held the army together. Punishment was immediate. Public. Severe. Because fear, in this case, protected unity. Then came the part most people never consider, the part that reveals the true scale of Roman thinking. The battlefield itself was a threat, not from enemies, but from what was left behind. Bodies. Contamination. Disease. Within hours, the air could turn toxic. Water could become deadly. An invisible enemy began to form. And unlike human opponents, this one could not be negotiated with. So the Romans acted quickly. Systematically. Without hesitation. Teams were assigned. Areas were cleared. Remains were removed or destroyed. Clothing burned. Ground treated. Water sources protected. Because survival did not end with victory. It continued through prevention. This was not compassion. It was calculation. Because an army weakened by illness is an army already defeated. And yet, within all this cold efficiency, there was one area where Rome showed something unexpected, something almost human. The wounded, behind the organized chaos. A different kind of battle was taking place. Quiet, focused, precise. Doctors moved through rows of injured soldiers, assessing, deciding, acting. Not emotionally, but not carelessly either, because every soldier mattered, not as a person, but as an either. Investment. Time, training, experience, all too valuable to lose unnecessarily. So they treated them, cleaned wounds, stopped bleeding. Operated when needed, used what they had. Skill over comfort. Speed over hesitation. Pain was not avoided, but life was preserved. And this created something powerful. Trust. A soldier who knows he will be treated fights differently. Takes greater risks, pushes further, because fear of abandonment is removed. That alone changes everything. And while all this unfolded, another force was working. Quietly. Relentlessly. Without recognition. The scribes, while swords rested, pens moved, recording everything. Losses, resources, actions, outcomes. Because memory in Rome was not left to stories. It was documented. Controlled. Archived. Every detail mattered. Not for history. But for power. Because information allowed Rome to command from a distance. to control vast territories. To maintain order where chaos would normally spread. And finally, when everything was accounted for, came the moment the soldiers had been waiting for. Recognition. Not emotional praise, but structured reward. Medals, coins, status. Given publicly, deliberately. Because recognition is not just reward. It is reinforcement. It tells the soldier, this behavior matters. This risk was worth it. This system works. And so loyalty deepens. Not through emotion, but through consistency. And then, almost quietly, everything resets. Training resumes. Discipline returns. Routine reestablishes control. Because Rome never allowed victory to become comfort. Comfort leads to weakness. Weakness leads to failure. So the cycle continues. And in the end, what remains is not the battle. Not the noise. Not even the victory. But the system that followed it. Those 48 hours reveal something most people never see. Rome did not win because it fought harder or because it was braver. It won because it understood something deeper, that chaos is temporary, but order, if enforced with precision, can outlast anything, even war. And maybe that's the part that unsettles us the most. Not the violence itself, but how quickly humans can organize it, control it, and turn it into something that feels normal.